You are listening to The Rant.
Please go away. Let me sleep for the love of God.
I am Kamala Harris. My pronouns are she and her. I am a woman sitting at the table wearing a blue suit.
You are listening.
So the best way to get something done, if it holds near and dear to you that you like to be able to, anyway.
You fucking crazy, man. You sound insane. Do you realize that?
To The Rant.
I speak jive.
Oh, good.
I've been saying it. I've been saying it for 10 damn years. Ain't I been saying it, Miguel? Huh? I've been saying it.
You are listening to The Rant with David King.
Welcome to The Rant. I am your host, David King. It is good to be here today with you on this February the 24th. On this special edition of The Rant. This is part 8, if you can believe it. Part 8 of the Walking Dead special. There's only 3 more left after this. If you've been following along with me, I appreciate it. I know that it's hard at this point. I mean, let's just face it. The show's not getting better. We all know that. Many of us drop out right about after this season. I'm about to the point where I stopped watching. In fact, I quit watching season 9 about halfway through, and then I kind of forced myself to finish it. Because I was curious about Rick's character, and I'll get to more about that later on. But, yeah, it's, and I talked to a couple other people too, and it's about the same time period. And interestingly enough too, if you go to IMDb and you look at the ratings of each show, it's interesting to note that, you know, season 1 gets like 8 and 9 out of 10 star reviews. And now, you know, you think about that, that's pretty good. It's remarkably good. And then season 8, the first episode, 6.9, 6.7, 6.4, 6.8, 7.2, 6.1, 6.5, 6. The highest rated show of the season was an 8. Which ironically was actually one of the better episodes of the season, to be fair. The writing was just bad. That's really what it comes down to. They have this huge buildup in season 7 for this war against Negan. And really the world is your oyster as a writer here. You have all these really interesting characters. You have all these different communities. You have Negan, who's a really great villain, who is, for all intents and purposes, stronger, better, more well-equipped than any of the other groups. And so it'll be interesting to see how it would all play out. But yeah, we'll touch on more of this here in a little bit. I don't want to get ahead of myself. Thank you again, everyone, for listening to The Rant. I really appreciate it. We've been having a lot more downloads lately. We've hit huge traffic. And it's just absolutely fantastic. I couldn't be happier to see the amount of downloads that I've been receiving weekly now. So if you are new to the show, thank you. If you haven't listened to any of the Walking Dead specials yet before, I strongly recommend you go back to the first one and listen all the way through. And if you feel up to it, watch the episodes. Watch each season along with me as I do these specials, so you have kind of a better understanding of where I'm coming from when I talk about it. And that'll be very easy for you to do in the first 3 or 4 seasons because they're very good. But after a while, it will become a little bit difficult, but I believe in you. Mainly because I believe in myself. I have to get through this too. So thank you for joining. If you're new, if you've been listening for a while, welcome back. And If you have not checked out the last episode, I had a great interview with Laura Balance of the Hudgens Art Center. She's just fantastic. If you have not listened to that, I strongly recommend that you do. I think it'll be very interesting, and I think you'll get something out of it. You might be very surprised too what you get out of it. On that note, let's pick up and get going with Walking Dead Specials Part 8. We are now on Season 8, so buckle up, strap yourselves in, because we are in for a strange and bumpy ride, ladies and gentlemen, as we dive deep into Season 8 of The Walking Dead. Season 8, it picks up not exactly right after Season 7 ended. We get kind of a brief montage of the three communities kind of working together to make weapons, armor, and other items for the war with Negan. So we have to believe that it's at least a few weeks after Season 7. We're not really entirely too sure. It's not that much longer because Maggie's still not showing. In fact, the ironic thing is Maggie never shows that she's pregnant. She's always the same looking woman. And then you follow up with Season 9 and she's had her baby. It's just kind of funny how that works out. There's some kind of weird kind of poetic speeches like you would see in some kind of cheesy old war movie going on here. A lot of montages, a lot of cuts, and, lots of long drawn out stares in people's face, some stoic looks, with intense music playing in the background. They're trying to kind of amp you up for the war. So they've got these weird kind of long drawn out speeches that you kind of hear almost like from a war movie, like the general's long winded cadence to ready his men for the battle ahead, and that sort of works for those movies, but it doesn't really work much here. It just kind of comes across as cheesy to me anyway. I would much rather see everyone, rightfully terrified and nervous about going into war with another group. That is, to me, is more realistic, as none of these people are actually soldiers. None of them are real soldiers. None of them signed up for this sort of thing. That they've never fought in battle before. Sure, they fought the dead and they've had some scrimmages here and there, but most of these people aren't really prepared for an all-out assault, because the reality is they could very likely die. And so it'd be much more entertaining if it played off of that, the emotion and the fear of the characters of what they're about to get into, because I think there would be less talking. There'd be more silence, more stoicism, people focusing, trying to build their courage up to go into battles, things like that, kind of like the 1,000-mile death stare that everybody gets, that look in their eye. But, much of Season 8 is like this. It's kind of cheesy and awkward and leaving you to wonder how many of these people really survived this long, for that matter, or through one battle alone. And so we've really come off the rails here in Season 8 in terms of the writing. And I'm going to touch on that a lot more as this show goes on. I said, don't let the flashing sounds, the explosions, the abundance of action scenes distract you from the lack of creative writing here. It's very easy to kind of get intertwined with what is going on in the first two episodes, and kind of miss all of the kind of what the hell moments and cheesy kind of dialogue and action scenes and battles and everything that's going on. It's easy to miss between all the explosions and zombies. But if you kind of push that off to the side, it's real easy to see that there's not a whole lot of substance here. So we start off with episode 1, obviously. And when Rick arrives so they've kind of done their little speeches, and you see them building up their armored vehicles. And Rick then arrives at the sanctuary with these said armor-plated vehicles. When I say armor-plated vehicles, they're not like what you would expect in a battlefield. They're like up-armored Humvees or anything like that. These are just cars that have been rigged with, metal plates and corrugated siding, stuff like that you would normally find around, an apocalyptic world. Are they bulletproof? Not necessarily, especially with some of the rifles that these people are using, but that's besides the point. But Rick arrives at the sanctuary with his armor-plated vehicles, and this is the first red flag for me. If you didn't think it was, it certainly was for me. The thing is, Negan, he's always 1 or 2 steps ahead of his enemies, including Rick. He's always been that way. Negan has the upper hand. He always has more troops. He's got, he has the upper hand. He has more troops. He's got way more weapons. He has several outposts that stretch out his reach around the land of that area. So he's got all this infrastructure. And Negan knows they're at war. He announces it at the end of season 7 because we're going to war. And yet he allows Rick and the others enough time to build up their ranks, build these armored vehicles, and give out these cheesy speeches. It's like they've got all this time to prepare for war. Why is it that Negan is giving them all this time to prepare? That would be the last thing you'd want to do if you're Negan. Negan could have attacked at any time, almost immediately after the declaration of war that he gave at the end of the last season. But he doesn't. He could have easily taken any one of the communities out quickly and efficiently, and yet he doesn't. What did he do? Well, what he did do was he sat around and did nothing. That's what he did. He places a few scouts out and about, but only one person per area, which is very strange, making them very easy targets. I don't know why he would do this when he has the manpower to put a minimum of squads of 10 on watch. So if you remember in the first episode of season 8, you see these like kind of lone out, like they're, from what I can understand, they're kind of people out on watch, keeping an eye on the communities. But there's only like one person per lookout. And to me, that doesn't make any sense. First off, we know now you never go anywhere alone, period. You always go in teams of 2 minimum. But Negan has the manpower to put scouts in squads of 10 out there. He has the ability to have war games, to actually put people out in the field doing real recon. But he doesn't do that. If I'm Negan and had half a brain, which I do, I would have patrols on every road that led to and from the sanctuary 24/7. No, there would be no exceptions. Either all night, all day. I'd recon hideout. I'd have recon hideout hit out, watching what Rick and his people were doing. I would put recon. I would put people as close to those communities as I possibly could without them being notified. But no, he doesn't do any of that. He really doesn't. He just kind of puts a couple people out here, and that's about it. And Rick is just able to drive right up to the front gates of the sanctuary unchecked, which is a huge head scratcher. How in the world? Like, I could completely understand if Rick and a few of his people snuck up to the gates of the sanctuary undetected. But the fact that they drove a convoy, and not only a convoy, but they also lured a huge horde of zombies, which was a serious undertaking. They lured that this monster horde of zombies there as well, and they go unchecked, and it just goes, you're going, what in the world is going on here? How is this even possible that Negan would allow them to get this close? Negan is too smart for this. But for some reason, he's not. And to me, this is insulting to Negan's character, and frankly goes against it in a really big way. Negan is supposed to be playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers. And that's just not the case anymore. It's almost as if the writers dumbed down Negan intentionally. It feels very much like that. Like they're going, well, Negan's too powerful. We made him too powerful, and there's no creative way for us to write a story where Rick and his group can win. But there is. There certainly is. There's a million ways you could do this. Now, you could do it where it's believable and a lot of people die, and it leaves everybody beaten, battered, and broken. But that's the reality of war, and especially a situation like this. But no, instead you break Negan's character into something that he's not. And it feels very strange. And I'm going to touch more on it later, because you do start to see Negan acting suspiciously different this season than he was last season. And I'm going to kind of get to why that is when a few of those instances pop up. And to make matters worse, and I think it's the second red flag, as if all of that, what I just said before, wasn't enough, Negan just kind of walks out onto the open balcony with no cover and no real way to escape when he goes to greet Rick and his army. So Rick and his group, they pull right up to the front gates of the sanctuary to actually get through the gates, no problem, unchecked, as if everything's fine at the sanctuary. And there's no war going on, so we have no lookouts, nobody guarding, nobody in the town just outside of the sanctuary guarding it, no patrols, no nothing. You guys could just drive right in, and now here you are, you're in. And to make it worse, Negan just nonchalantly walks out onto the balcony, completely exposed. I don't know. Why would you do this? You're now completely exposed. You could be killed instantly. Everyone has a clear shot of Negan at this point. And why does Rick give an ultimatum? I mean, you literally, along with everyone else that you have there, have a clear shot of Negan. Take the damn shot. Why wouldn't you? I mean, sure, you may have to fight off a few of his lieutenants, but you were already prepared for that anyway. This is a very bizarre scene. Rick stands there all the time, with all the time in the day to take out Negan, and he doesn't. I mean, pop, dude, story's over. You can't do that. You cannot write a scene because these two men hate each other, right? Rick is wants revenge because of what Negan's done to him, and Negan wants Rick to fall in line, but he won't. So Negan's like, enough is enough. So these are two guys that don't like each other. They are fully prepared to kill one another. And with all the rage and built up tension with Rick, he has every right at that moment to take the shot. Any logical brain, anyone who has half a brain would know, take the damn shot. And he doesn't do it. Why does he not do it? Instead, and here's another stupid move, they just shoot out all the windows of the sanctuary. So they end up opening fire and somehow manage to miss Negan and most of his men. Like, everyone managed to escape. I don't know how this is possible. I really don't understand how everyone with that many weapons pointed at an open balcony misses all of them. But I guess you could say it's in the script. Well, it's a bad script. So you could have shot Negan and most of his lieutenants and basically ended it right there. But instead, you waste a ton of ammo on windows. This is a very bad strategy because it's the apocalypse and ammo is in very short supply. You're not just going to go run down to the store or on Amazon and buy more ammo. Why would you waste it on windows? You could say, well, Dave, they're shooting out the windows so they can see inside the sanctuary. Fair enough. But you wouldn't have to worry about that because Negan was right there. You could have just sprayed him down with rounds and been done with it. The answer is, in reality, you wouldn't do that. You would not waste the ammo on windows. You would take into account the scarcity of the ammo, the weapons you have, and the people that you have, and be far more strategic in your operations than what they are. None of that happens here. Now, they like to make you think that Rick has this big, bold plan, but the reality is Rick's plan was to show up at the sanctuary, shoot out the windows, lure a bunch of walkers in, and then basically let Negan ride it out until his own people turned on him. That was their plan. It's a horribly stupid plan. It ends up failing, not for the reasons that it should have failed. It should have failed from the rip. And I'll get to more of that too in a little bit. So Negan has to crawl away and find cover as Rick and his group opens fire. He manages somehow to get away. And here's another red flag. Again, this doesn't make sense to me. Rick and his army apparently have the cheat code for infinite ammo. First off, every weapon they have seems to be fully automatic, and this bothers me to no end. And I know this is more of like a personal pet peeve. Kate kind of rolls her eyes when I yell this out loud when I'm watching it, but it's absolutely ridiculous in and of itself. That every rifle, I'm pretty sure the shotguns are fully automatic in this show. It's that ridiculous. Here's some context for you guys, just some perspective, if you will. There are over 330 million legal firearms in circulation in the United States. That doesn't include the 160 million illegal firearms, but there's 330 million legally owned firearms in the United States. And it's likely it's actually more than that now. If I had to guess, I would probably say less than 30% of them are fully automatic. And it's probably even less than that. First of all, fully automatic rifles are basically illegal to own. You have to have a special license to have them. They're hard to get. They're very rare and they're very expensive. And because you have to go through all this red tape to get them, most people don't have them. Most of the firearms, if you see an AR-15, the big bad boogeyman of rifles that everybody seems to hate, that is a semi-automatic rifle. There's not an automatic version of the AR-15. The automatic version of the AR-15 is a military variant called the M4. Now, it is very likely that Rick and his group could have stumbled upon a few M4s, but even if you manage to find the very few military rifles that are actually fully automatic, you would still not have this many. In fact, many of the rifles that they have that are automatic aren't military rifles. For instance, like the AK-47 or the AK-74, those are the kind of the weapons that you would expect to see like the Taliban use. Their versions are probably fully automatic, but the ones that they sell here in the United States are not. They're semi-automatic. You will not find a fully automatic AK here. Now, you will, but it's very, very unlikely that you would find a fully automatic AK. The odds of you finding one are probably like 1 in a million, because there's just not that many in the United States. There just isn't that many. Not certainly to the extent that they're showing us here. And so, but yet, you know, every rifle they have is fully automatic, and they have no idea what a selector switch is and how to use it. So they just spray and pray. And one of the funny things I just couldn't help but laugh. I saw later on in the show, there's a man firing a rifle. It's called an M14. It's one of my favorite rifles. I want one so bad. They're super, super cool. Very, very accurate. The military uses them as kind of a marksmanship rifle. It's not a sniper rifle, but it's kind of like a mid-range. I believe it has a 10-round mag. It may be a 20-round, but I doubt it. It's not a very big mag. It's a small mag. It just goes to show you it doesn't hold a lot of rounds, and it only comes in semi-automatic. It is not a fully automatic weapon. It's never been a fully automatic weapon, and yet in this show, it was fully auto. It was so bad. This guy was firing it like full auto, and it was like he was firing way more shots than were possibly could be in that magazine. It was so terrible, and you just can't help but laugh. It's corny. If you didn't know, because you're going like, well, how's that possible, Dave? Like, maybe you're wrong. It's like, no. If you didn't know, they CGI all the gunshots in this show. So none of these guns are ever actually firing ammunition. If they do, it's very rare, and it's usually a pistol that they put blanks in. So all the gunshots you're seeing, like the muzzle bursts and the sounds, all that stuff is later put in via computers, which makes everything even more kind of cheesy, to be completely honest. It's really unfortunate that they've managed to blow their budget on. They have all the budget in the world to make these zombies look absolutely gruesome and terrifying, but they don't add anything else. And they have enough in the budget to do a CGI tiger, but they don't have enough in the budget to have blanks on some of these weapons, especially for certain scenes. Especially when you're doing close-ups. Some words of advice: if you aren't going to have real firing weapons on set, don't do close-ups of the weapons firing. They did a scene, I think it was either episode 2 or 3, I can't remember. It was when Carol was fighting off a couple of the saviors right after the King's people got all killed, and she was trying to get the 50 cals. And you could see it. They did a close-up, like an over-the-shoulder, like down the barrel kind of look from the buttstock of the weapon down the barrel was the angle of the camera angle while he was firing. And that's a cool shot. Like, it's a great shot because you're seeing the guy holding you're looking down the side of the rifle as he's firing at Carol. The problem is it was all CGI'd, and whoever did the CGI didn't take the time to, put in, spent brass ejecting from the ports or the bolts firing, opening and closing when the bolts fire back. There's none of that when the weapon's shooting, but no brass is coming out. Nothing else is happening. And it's just so unbelievably cheesy. They're just like, what the hell is this? And not to mention, they fire all of those shots at the sanctuary, and never once do they hit any of the saviors. None of the meaningful ones, anyway, that I can remember. As far as I know, nobody gets shot when they all open fire with their fully automatic weapons. And you're already like, you're halfway through episode 1, and all you're doing is just laughing because it's so unbelievably bad. if you're going to do a close-up shot like that angle down the rifle, put it in the budget to have a rifle that actually fires blanks. So you have all of it working side by side. It looks real and it's believable. But anyway, so the war's on. Yep. So here we go. The war's kicked off. It's like basically two idiots trying to kick a football down the field or something. It's just, that's what you feel like you're watching. I do think it is clever, for the record. I do think it's clever that they move a herd of walkers into the sanctuary, basically blocking them in. I do think that is a clever move. It's a well use of the dead. But the fact that they could get away with such a complicated task to begin with makes my head explode. Because again, how the hell did these people get so close to the sanctuary unchecked? That's one of my biggest pet peeves of this. It's like, how did you manage to get this close without any resistance whatsoever? Well, David, they took all the resistance out. They show it right before they arrived. Yeah, like the one or two guys on lookout, which again is retarded. Or excuse me, I'm trying not to use that word anymore. It's stupid because you wouldn't put one guy out in the middle of nowhere by himself because he could very easily be taken out, which is what happens. And then these guys just show up and have their way. It really feels like the writers made Negan a complete idiot for the sake of drawing out this war between him and Rick. Because the reality of it all is Rick and his people would have been dead long ago. If Negan would have stayed true to his character, which this show has never had a problem really with characters staying true to who they are. It's one of my biggest things that I loved about seasons 1 through 3 is that as these characters developed, they were still very true to themselves. They didn't deviate very much. And yet here we are, we're having one of the most popular villains of the series, Negan, go completely off script. It's like, what is going on? You know, and so you just have to think that the writer's like, well, we don't know we're not creative enough to make this work. So we're just going to make Negan an idiot. That's the only way that Rick could possibly win this war is if Negan just kind of completely gaffes the whole thing. And that's really what he's done up to this point. And so Rick, again, has a chance to kill Negan in this firefight in episode 1 as he sees him pinned down and he can kind of get the jump on him. But Gabriel, as always, kind of screws things up, and Gabriel somehow convinces him to leave and continue the mission, which is ridiculous because the mission is to take out Negan. Why are we playing games here, people? Like, why would you not go after him? Gabriel's like, no, man, you got to get back. You got to go to these other areas. Why? Go kill Negan. And then you could parade around with his dead body and show the saviors they lost. But anyway, so again, Rick doesn't shoot Negan. Negan manages to finally escape again. And we cut to the group splitting up at this point and going after all the outposts. And I believe this is a very smart play. However, the outposts seem to be irrelevant and useless, which is very strange because they would be a very useful thing to have if you're at a war with 3 small communities. I don't know why would you have them if you don't use them? Why have them and only seem to have 2 or 3 guys on watch, which is the case for all of these compounds. They seem to be very, the security seems to be very laxed. You're literally at war right now. Everyone should be on high alert, and those outposts should be guarded like Fort Knox, as far as I'm concerned. You should have 2 shifts, morning and night, and the majority of those people should be on watch the entire time. There should be nobody watching TV and smoking and joking when you're supposedly at war. But yet that's kind of what's going on at most of these compounds. So aside from the walkers surrounding one of the outposts, the satellite outpost to be exact, the groups make quick and easy work of them. Except the one they do kind of a little friendly drive-by on. You know, all of Negan's people are at this other outpost. You know, I guess they're searching for some high-powered weapons at this one. All of Negan's people are kind of ignorantly unaware and just cleaning weapons and treating their workers like shit as always. And then suddenly, with no problem at all, again, unchecked, the squad, they pull up a squad of armored cars and they just open up fire and wreak havoc. Again, they all have fully automatics and manage to hit very few of the saviors or anyone in the first volley. It's like, it's really pathetic how bad of a shot everyone seems to be in this show. Especially with all the abundance of ammunition that they can just spray without caring. So we get the pleasure to see a battle go on for an entire show, if not longer. That's basically what happens here. It's just a continuous battle. Again, all of these folks have full auto rifles, not managing to hit a damn thing. And it's interesting to note that we see them on all on both sides going just kind of gung ho with their trigger fingers, and I noticed this, that no one stops to reload. I really made sure to kind of pay attention to this and see if I catch it, but nope. No one changes a magazine out ever once. They just keep endlessly firing for all of eternity. Again, it's really bad. It's also interesting to note that none of them are carrying mag pouches or backpacks. So I don't know where the hell they're keeping this endless supply of ammo. I just don't know. So again, it's cheesy. You have guys that are basically in regular street clothes. They're wearing like jeans. And they're just constantly firing away these weapons. It's like, first off, where are you holding all these magazines? You haven't replaced a magazine yet. You seem to just keep going and going and going. And it's just unbelievably bad. And this entire battle, again, makes little to no sense. Their plan is never to advance on the saviors beyond their own vehicles. They don't move past the comfort of their armor plating. They just keep firing at them. Eventually, the ones they kill, if they actually manage to kill them once, which they do, will turn into zombies and then eat the ones that haven't been shot. What a freaking joke. Are you kidding me? First off, again, this is the bad writing. First off, you have no idea when those bodies will turn. Could be hours, could be days. It really just depends. I know it depends really on when the plot needs them to turn, but we never know how long it's going to take. But still, you're just going to waste precious ammo. Again, ammo is supposed to be precious. It's the apocalypse, but for some reason in this show, ammo is not precious. It's just it's on unlimited supply. You're going to waste precious ammo shooting at this group, hoping that a few turn in the next, 10 minutes? Firefights in real life, okay? If we're talking about real life combat, firefights in real life combat can be over in seconds. As quickly as it starts, they can be over. There's a few variables as to why. One of them being ammo, for instance, and how much you have. The average soldier that goes out into battle carries a little over 100 rounds on him. I want to say about 180 rounds, but I can't remember the exact number. That's what they can kind of comfortably carry on their body. Now, that's not to say that they're not going to have more ammo in reserve, maybe in a vehicle or something. But the point is, on a person, how much can you comfortably carry? That's usually about the amount you'll carry. If you were an idiot, had a full auto rifle and a happy trigger finger, you could burn through that 180 rounds of ammo probably in under 5 minutes. And I'm not kidding about that. With a semi-automatic, and that's with a semi-automatic rifle. You can burn through 180 rounds in under 5 minutes easily with a semi-automatic rifle. Real quick. And yet here's Rick's group just spraying and praying for what seems like an hour or so at minimum. The battle seems to go on for a very long time. It's really hard to tell, but it drags out the entire show. And so in reality, it'd probably be over a minute because all of them would have run out of ammo. They would have had to arm wrestle each other or something because they ran out of ammo on both sides. This scene is completely asinine and just goes to show you that whoever wrote it knows nothing about combat at all, how weapons work, or for that matter, any real tactical thought. There was none given in any of these scenes. There's no emphasis on using tactics and limiting your use of ammo. It's just like, no, we're good. Just keep spraying. The whole damn war would have been over after that battle because everybody would have run out of ammo. I mean, shit, dude. Like, even the old Arnold movies made more sense than this crap. It's just plain awful. And to make matters worse, no one is really dying here too. And that's the even worse part of it. These two groups are literally within 15 or 20 yards of one another, firing fully automatic rifles that apparently don't need to be reloaded, and none of them are being hit. I mean, I know the saviors are kind of taking a little bit of a beating. They're getting hit here and there, but even the saviors are moving up. The show makes you believe, well, the saviors might get the jump on them. And yeah, you know, some of them do finally come back as zombies and they go to work and they start biting people. How clever. It's also interesting to note how everyone becomes extremely stupid when the show needs them to, so they can be bit. It's like the saviors they all had guns with endless supply of ammo, as I've already beaten down a dead horse with that comment. And they just kind of let the zombies bite them. They just lay there. Oh, he's grabbed my arm. I'm not going to fight him off. I'm not going to push him away. The girl realizes what they were doing. Oh, they don't have to advance. It's like she figures out their plan. And of course, because the writers don't trust the audience to be smart enough to figure it out on their own, she has to narrate what the plan was altogether before a zombie just casually comes up to her and bites her shoulder, when she could have very easily moved away from that zombie or shot it. It's just so bad. It's just bad. It's frustrating. It's frustrating because it doesn't have to be that way. This show started off, it was such an amazing show. Groundbreaking. And now we're here dealing with this idiocy. The lack of a better word, I can't find a better word than just cheesy. It's just bad. And here's the thing. We're not even past episodes 1 and 2 yet. I'm just talking about the first 2 episodes of the season. I haven't even gotten anywhere near cracking into this season yet. Food for thought, Hollywood. For Hollywood, TV, whoever's listening. If you plan to do combat scenes in anything, do some freaking research. Maybe hire anyone. Hire the half-drunken jarhead grunt that tends bar in Los Angeles, because even he would have ripped the scene to shreds. But unfortunately, this is just foreshadowing of things to come, my friends. Unfortunately, it just is. Because if all this stupidity wasn't enough, Rick runs into an old friend from season 1. Oh man, this scene's great. I can't remember his name because, well, he wasn't very important then, and he certainly isn't very important now. This man, he left with his family to go to Birmingham at the end of season 1. How did he manage to go from Birmingham, Alabama to Washington, D.C.? Don't know. No idea. I mean, the likelihood that you would end up going to Birmingham and end up in D.C., I don't know. What are the odds that you would, first off, what are the odds that he'd run into the Saviors, join them, and be in a building that Rick happens to go into with just Daryl? Well, the odds must be pretty damn good, because that's what happens. Somehow this man manages to wind up in D.C. working for the Saviors and and be in a building where Rick stumbles in. I hate what they've done to this show. I really do. That is fanfare. That is like what Star Wars does when they like put Easter eggs in the show or they bring an old character back. It's just fanfare. It doesn't make the show good. It doesn't make anything better. It can be okay. Fanfare is not a bad thing. You know, this scene's not an utterly horrible scene. It's just like you look at it and you go, how? How the hell did this guy end up here? It just doesn't make any sense. So it's ended up, to me, it's just a big waste of a scene. We know Rick's not going to die here. And since this dude was a nobody in season 1, we just have to wait for Daryl to show up and save the day. And sure enough, guess what? Boom, he does. And that's the best part of the whole scene. The payoff of that whole scene is Daryl just popping that guy in the back of the head with his crossbow. It just shows you where Daryl's at right now, and I like it quite a bit. He's in a, like, I don't care, I'm here to win this kind of attitude. He didn't care who that was. He just took him out. Rick's like, man, did you know who that was? He goes, I don't care. Daryl is actually one of the very few characters, or really the only character this season that doesn't really deviate from who they are. He stays pretty consistent, while all the other characters are kind of basically turned upside down from Sunday, he remains pretty much in playing with who he is. He's still following that arc. He's still very true to himself and his character. His move later on with the Sanctuary is a bit off character, but not as much as the others. The reality is the writers, they just don't have any idea what to do with these characters. They have no idea what to do with these well-developed characters. And I think personally they're just ruining them this season. They're ruining the whole thing. It's like if someone handed you, well, for instance, it's like if someone hands you the Star Wars series. They're like, here's Star Wars. You own it now. Make some content. And you were just like, I'm a shitty writer and I don't know how to write. But I'm going to give it a shot. And then you end up with, episodes 7, 8, and 9. You end up with Kenobi. You end up with Boba Fett. You get crap like that. They just, you don't know what to do with something that you don't know what to do with someone else's, fantastic content. You don't have the ability to take that and run with it. Aaron's partner dies in all this. I know I didn't care either. I almost forgot, to be completely honest with you. Don't worry. The show wasted a lot of time on it because they want you to believe that it was a big deal. Why would you dedicate so much time to a relationship and a character that was never developed? I don't know. It was given little to no attention from the beginning. That's for sure. Eric was barely a B-level character. He really never came around very often. But yet, they dedicated a huge chunk of episode 2 to this, which is very strange. It's felt a lot like the Sasha episode where we're kind of made to watch an entire episode of her make really stupid decisions that ultimately lead to her death, which she didn't have to die. She chose to. They kind of drag it out to make you care, but you can't because the character was never developed in such a way to make you care. You can't make up for that in a single episode. It doesn't work that way. We won't suddenly become invested in a character enough to make us feel real emotions when they are killed off or something happens to them in one single episode. It takes a season. It takes a course of episodes for us to become emotionally involved or invested in a character. And that's what Eric is. Nobody cares. No one was ever made to care. And we won't in 30 minutes. That's for damn sure. So stop doing this. It didn't work with Sasha. It's not going to work with Eric. Cut the crap. And the show, it focuses very heavily on the king as well. He's always smiling, even though they are headed to battle. And yet I smile. As he always says, and yet I smile. And his cheesy ass speeches. I don't hate his speeches per se, but again, I don't like his character. It's way over the top. It just seems it's like the kind of characters you'd see in a sci-fi movie, a very low budget sci-fi movie. It's not good. And the fact that he keeps mentioning that his ranks are untouched every time they wage a battle on someone, it undoubtedly makes you believe that something bad is about to happen at some point to them. It's like, could you project any more? And of course, sure enough, it does. Wouldn't you know it? The king and his people get moved down in a field. They get mowed down rather in a field by 250 caliber machine guns that the saviors had posted in an upper window. I keep saying it, I'll scream it out all the time. It's like, spread out. They all move, like they're all huddled together when they're moving through the woods. You wouldn't do this in any real setting. I don't believe, and I think the average person probably knows this, that if you're moving through the woods in a combat situation, or even in a field for that matter, you'd want to spread out. You don't want to be so huddled together, because if you're huddled together, it makes you a much easier target. Now you're all in one spot and you can be very easily taken out. But when you're spread out, it makes it harder to target you. And it also allows you to have more movement. Whereas if you're in a field and you're spread out a little bit more, because like I said, they were like in a big groups with one another. There's no real tactical thought given to this. And I know you can make the argument like these people aren't soldiers, Dave. They don't know how to do all that. It's like, I understand that, but there is some common sense, in my opinion, to all this. Spread out a little bit. Everyone knows about a good flank, right? You know how to flank. And that's some of the things that they should have been doing. And there's none of that going on. The reality is your show's only as smart, your characters are only as smart as the writers, and the writers in the show are just straight dumb when it comes to anything combat related. They do not know how to write these scenes, and it shows because the whole thing is just completely cheesy and terribly done. And so the fact that these guys are all sitting together makes them sitting ducks. And so when these guys had Negan's crew had these 50 cals, they made very quick work with the king's men. No problem at all. Interestingly enough, too, I actually thought this was kind of good. The show actually decided to accurately portray the power of the 50 cal as basically blowing people to pieces and, huge exit wounds. The 50 cal is not a joke, man. When those things if they hit you, it's pretty much game over. But thankfully, for the king's sake, he was defended by his army. They fell on him and they kind of dogpiled on him to protect him. How he managed to get out from underneath that dead weight afterwards is beyond me, especially with a busted leg, but he does it. But needless to say, he ain't smiling no more. And neither is Jerry. Thankfully the show only killed off a bunch of characters we know nothing about in the scene. God forbid if we lost somebody that we actually knew or were invested in 2 or 3 seasons, in 2 and 3 episodes rather, we have yet to see anybody of significance really other than Eric, which is not very significant, be taken out. So anyway, the king is under this dog pile. He kind of crawls out. He's trying to get away as all the king's people are starting to reanimate. And the king ends up being taken hostage by a guy who looks like Jeffrey Dahmer. I'm not really sure what decade this dude just came from, but whatever. They waste some time and end up getting trapped at a gate as the dead kingdom fighters are kind of storming down upon them. Jerry, thankfully, though, comes out of nowhere and saves the day and splits Jeffrey Dahmer in 2 with his battle axe, which is kind of badass. Carol is also nearby. She gets into a firefight with the Saviors loading up those 50 calibers. And that entire scene is kind of dumb. It didn't start off dumb. It starts off quite well, actually. She's kind of using some tactics. She's hiding. She takes out all the guys inside the room, and then she hops down, but then more people are coming, so she has to kind of escape. And then the scene outside was just kind of silly. Again, it's just more like, what the hell's going on? She gives up after a while, and instead of just shooting her and carrying on, one of them gets kind of close enough for her to get near him, and he gets killed by Carol, and she opens up a gate of walkers, but whatever. It's like, why would you not just put her down? Why would you even tell her to walk out to you? It's like, nobody has any common damn sense in this show. Everyone's just like, oh, she's giving up. Like, go ahead and go get her. Like, no, that's not how this works. Like, you walk out towards me. Everyone's seen Cops, man. We've all watched an episode of Cops. We know how it works. You turn around, right? You step away from the vehicle, put your hands on your head, turn around, get on your knees, right? Face away. Now I'm in control. You can't see me. You have to get up. If you get up, you're going to get shot. They don't do that here. He just walks right up to her and she freaking hits him and fights him. And the other 2 guys just kind of stand there like 2 dumb idiots while these 2 fight it out. And he kills her, or she kills him. And then she gets up and smashes this gate button. Like, you could have just smashed the gate button without giving up, but she didn't do that. I don't know. None of this makes any damn sense. This season is very forgettable, and it's really not very good. Also, this is the scene with the M14 that becomes suddenly fully automatic. At this point, my eyes have rolled so far into the back of my head, I kind of forgot the rest of that atrocious episode. The king is depressed, and he stumbles back into his community with just Jerry and Carol. The entire community kind of looks on in sadness and horror that everyone is dead. That's completely understandable. Honestly, that whole situation there with the king's men being mowed down, that's how it would have happened from the rip if Negan wasn't sitting on his hands for some reason. That's really the way this whole thing would have went down. But for some reason, the writers are like, no, we can't do that. But oh well. And so now we take a break from our usual programming and we cut over to Negan and Gabriel, who are hanging out in a shed. They managed to escape the horde somehow, and now they're lingering in a shed. Gabriel kind of somehow finds a way into Negan's head here. He's kind of doing some psychological tactics on him. And we kind of get to see a softer side of old Negan. We learn that he used to work with people. That was kind of his background. Maybe he was a coach or something. We're not really too sure. And he definitely had a wife that he wasn't particularly good to, but he loved her nonetheless. And I believe she dies of cancer. And her name was Lucille. That's why his bat is named Lucille. He's paying homage to his wife. It's almost like this scene. It's almost like the show is trying to change Negan into a victim. It feels that way. Maybe not entirely a victim, but they are trying desperately to change him from being the bad guy. And it is painfully obvious. Could it be that they're going to try to make him an anti-hero later? I don't know how this could be. He's such a bad man who's manipulated so many people, manipulates people now and kills people. But I guess time will tell on that one. All jokes aside, I did actually enjoy the exchange, though, between Negan and Gabriel. I did think that was actually a pretty decent exchange. You did get to see a different side of Negan, which I thought was all right and was fine. I'm simply pointing out that you start to see a different side of Negan quite a bit this entire season. And it just seems kind of off to me. These two are very much opposites that have come into this collision, right? You have a man of faith who feels he's on a mission from God, and then you have another one who thinks he is God, basically. Negan makes many comments all the time that he's not going to die. He dies when he decides he's going to die. He has a very godlike complex. So it was well done. I enjoyed it. I like the Negan kind of takes to Gabriel a little bit, and they kind of work together to get out. There's kind of a little weird moment there. It was enjoyable. Gabriel ends up getting sick. None of that really matters. It's just kind of a subplot that leads to a doctor being killed. None of that. It's just pointless. It's just kind of there to fill the gaps. So pretty much all right now is going to plan. And we get some filler in between all these episodes until Daryl and some others get a wild hair to finish the fight against Negan and deviate from Rick's plan. Now, this is, in my opinion, where Daryl kind of goes off character a little bit because he's always resourceful. That's no doubt about that. But he's also extremely loyal. And he's especially loyal to Rick. He always follows Rick's orders to the T, without a doubt. It's been that way since really season 2. Midway to later season 2, that's where Daryl has his character arc where he becomes this kind of different person. He goes from being a guy that's kind of out to get everybody and is just kind of worrying about himself to this really reliable comrade, for lack of better words. So for him to kind of do this was a little way off base for him, in my opinion. But everyone's kind of acting a little strange. And maybe the war will do that. Maybe everyone's just a little high strung and they want it to be over and they don't want anybody else to get hurt. So, who knows? Their plan, though, is to drive a garbage truck into the sanctuary and let the walkers surrounding inside of the sanctuary to finish them all off. Well, this doesn't work. And it allows Eugene to come up with a plan to clear the walkers. And now Negan has escaped. Go figure. This garbage truck scene to me is another kind of bizarre moment because Negan was supposedly trapped and all that Rick and his group had to do was wait it out. How did letting the walkers inside change all of that? How is it that Negan's trapped? He can't go anywhere. They don't apparently have the ammunition or resources to clear all of those walkers. And yet somehow a garbage truck blasting through the front wall and letting them inside changes all of that. Why now all of a sudden does the sanctuary have the ability to clear all of them? It really doesn't add up. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It seems like the writers accidentally wrote themselves into a corner and had to find a way out of it. So we get this kind of convenient scene, but it doesn't really add up. And to top off all the bad writing this season, we have Carl come across. Yes. Yes, as if the writing wasn't bad enough, Carl comes across a random person. I can't remember his name. Doesn't really matter. He's not important right now. Rick actually scared him off earlier in the season, in the beginning, but Carl, being the kid that never, ever, not once, has ever listened to his parents, decides to venture off on his own and find this man and try to save him. Lucky for him, the guy's actually a good guy. But, oh well. Eventually, he does find this man, and he sees him killing walkers in the woods. Carl offers some food and water to him, asks him the 3 questions that they always ask new people, and then they proceed to head to Alexandria. In the process of all that, they come across some more walkers. Now, the smart thing to do here would be to just avoid them, but the man tells Carl that his mother believed that killing them would release their trapped spirits. Now, I happen to agree a little bit with that. I think that would be the case, but I don't agree with engaging with zombies unless you absolutely have to. This is maybe the Resident Evil player in me talking right now, but nonetheless, no unnecessary risks. But that's what they do. So now you don't know that Carl gets bit here, but eventually you find out that he does. So Carl gets bit over something completely stupid and unnecessary. But like I said earlier, the rate at which you turn is whatever the plot needs it to be. And in this case, a few days for Carl, many days before he even shows signs of becoming sick. It just kind of seems to all happen at once. Enough time to write letters to everyone, including Negan, and help this guy in a sewer for quite a while until he could convince his dad to let him in. So it's likely that Carl got bit and survived this bite for several days. At least that's kind of what the show makes us out to believe. Later on, Carl will distract Negan just long enough for people to escape. Negan shows up at Alexandria after they've escaped. After they have escaped the horde that was around them, Negan sets off to go get Rick. And so Carl kind of distracts Negan at this point at the walls of Alexandria, feeding him some bullshit lines. I kind of love this scene because Negan gets pissed and says, I thought we were having a moment, kid, you little shit. It was pretty hilarious. But Carl tricks him. And anyway, the people of Alexandria can escape. Carl kind of starts releasing smoke bombs to make it harder for Negan's people to see. But Negan ends up laying waste to most of Alexandria anyway, while they all hide in the sewer. And then this is when we find out that Carl's bit. Apparently, and I don't know, I could be getting this wrong, but apparently Chandler Riggs, the kid who played Carl, was set to graduate and go off to college, so he had to depart from the show, from what I understand. At least that's how I remember it. I could be very wrong about that, but I've heard that that's why Carl gets killed off. It's a huge deviation from the comic book. Carl does not get killed off, from what I understand. Now, me personally, too, I would have much rather seen Carl go out in a much better way than this. If you're going to kill off a legacy character, please, for the love of God, don't do it in such a ridiculous way. Like, Carl goes out getting bit, needlessly killing zombies. Really? Like, he couldn't have been, I don't know. To me, Carl was such kind of a badass kid. Like, he should have went down a different way. But this show is but the show is trying to set it up so that Rick and the group don't kill all the saviors or Negan. That's what's going on here. The whole reason why Carl finds this guy, the whole reason why Carl dies this way and he writes all these letters is because it looks like the show is trying to set it up where everyone just kind of hugs it out in the end, which is odd, I know, but that's the direction it seems to be going in. The sort of like, let's forgive and kind of coexist motto. And, I think it's great. I think you should forgive and try to coexist. I believe we should forgive our enemies and love one another as the Bible and Jesus teaches us. I agree with that as a Christian. But the reality is people like Negan don't forgive, and they certainly don't coexist. There is my beliefs where I believe, yes, we should forgive and move on and do our best. But there is also the reality that most people aren't that way. And you're not always going to be that way either. As much as you try, you can't be. And Negan is not somebody who forgives. And he's certainly not somebody who can coexist with you. It's like my sergeant major in boot camp said, sometimes there's people in this world that need killing, and that's what you're going to do. Well, guess what? Negan's one of those people. You're not somebody, he's not a person, in my opinion, that can be negotiated with. Now, however, this show's got really, really bad writers, and they may try to fudge some way into making that work, but we'll see. My Sergeant Major was right. Some people are far gone and can't get with the program, becoming a danger to everyone around them. Those people have to be dealt with. But this show, they're going to try to prove otherwise. Hands down. The bashing out the brains of two of your friends, one who was a father and killing many others, can all just be forgiven. Interesting. This feels a little bit like Kenobi with Reva's character. I feel like we're moving down that path. I certainly hope that's not the case, but we will see. We won't know until the next season, I'm sure. But needless to say, that was a pretty emotional episode because Carl was a legacy character and nobody wanted to see Carl die, and he did die, and it was sad, and they all had their moment. I will say that it was probably one of the better ones this season, no doubt. And from my rant, so far, that's not saying very much. Certainly the bar is very low. But anywho, Rick once again sets off to mess around with the Garbage Pail Kids again, for whatever reason. He finds out that they're all dead because Simon went rogue and shot them all. Jadis is the only, Jadis, whatever her damn name is the only survivor. Seeing this, Rick basically says screw it and leaves her because she no longer has anything to offer them. Rick, for the record here, is totally Negan. If you're not seeing this, you need to open your eyes. Rick and Negan are literally two of the same characters right now. At this very moment, anyway. Rick has channeled his inner monster, like I've spoken about on the last several seasons, but he's no longer controlling it. This dude's full send on it. He shares more in common with Morgan and Negan right now than he does with Glenn and Herschel, who were some of his guiding compasses in previous seasons. Maybe that's because Glenn and Herschel are dead. That could be very likely. That could be very much the case, but he's acting more like Morgan and Negan. I bring up Morgan because Morgan he's kind of fallen back into his old way of, I got to clear anybody who's my enemy just needs to die kind of thing. There's no remorse. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. I'm going to have to kill you. So Jadis has nothing to offer. And so he says, fine, leave her be. And honestly, that's smart because Jadis only ever messed with Rick anyway. I don't even know why he went back to the Garbage Pail Kids to begin with. It's like they're all stupid characters. It's a stupid outpost. It's dumb. Nothing ever good happened there. These people always turn on you. They always had ridiculous requests. They were never really in a position of authority or a position to really negotiate. It was weird because it's like Rick was never in a position to negotiate with them, and yet somehow he managed to. And it was likewise the other way around. It was really weird. It was just, again, I just don't like. I did never like those characters. Although you get to see them all go through a metal grinding machine, like a recycler, which was pretty gruesome. Anyway, back at the sanctuary, Negan was given a great idea by the traitor Eugene. I call him a traitor because that's what he is at this point. He is a traitor. And so the Saviors begin to dip their weapons in walker guts in order to unleash some psychological warfare on the hilltop. They are the next ones on the list. All of this is because Negan wants to keep the hilltop and kingdom alive and providing, which makes perfect sense. You'll find out really more or less why Negan's so hell-bent on making sure that these communities provide for the sanctuary. You'll find out more in season 9. In fact, you'll find out pretty much right away in the first episode. The reason why is because the sanctuary can't produce anything. They can't grow anything at all, and you'll see that in season 9. Where they're having a hard time growing just about anything. But Simon, on the other hand, apparently doesn't realize this because he does not seem to understand Negan's plan and why, and just wants to basically go full nuclear on all 3 communities and go further out, find new communities to basically shake down and extort. But Negan's like, no way, dude, we're not doing that. I think technically they're both right in this situation in many ways. Not that I'm saying I agree with them and I would do the same thing, but I would, if I was in their position, I would want to. I can understand where Simon is coming from because yes, the 3 communities have not really cooperated very well, especially Rick. They continue to show that they're not cooperating very well. And now it's leading to a lot of, people getting killed and destruction and blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, Negan wants to keep these communities because they provide resources, and you need resources. I mean, so either way, that's the deal. Negan wants to keep them alive and providing. So they set off on their mission to go to the hilltop when Negan is driving by himself. And wouldn't you know it, he gets sideswiped by Rick. Rick sees him drive by and then ends up getting in his car and T-bones him. Just I mentioned in the last episode, when the head of a snake is cut off of the body, when the head of a snake is cut off, the body dies, or maybe someone else will try to step up, but it's not the same. That's kind of what happens here when Negan gets sideswiped by Rick. Simon and Dwight go off looking for him, but they think they don't find him. They think he's dead. Simon kind of steps up as leader. Simon was already kind of halfway wanting to be leader anyway. And so this was just an easy moment for Simon to take over. And so that's what he does. And he decides to move along as planned, but they're going to take everyone out at the hilltop and they're going to do it for Negan. So they're going to go with Simon's plan and just go full nuclear. They're going to do it in the honor of Negan. We find out that Rick and Negan are actually in a nice little bit of a bout. They're kind of taunting each other. They fight a little bit inside this old kind of abandoned warehouse looking place. It was actually a great scene. Really loved it. But Negan does manage to escape when some walkers get let out. Back at the hilltop, Simon and his crew arrive and wage a nice little battle, but the hilltop was prepared and eventually chases them all out. Some of those guys end up dying too as well. Unfortunately, though, that evening, when everyone is asleep, anyone who was cut or hit with an arrow ends up turning, and the hilltop is awakened to a real-life nightmare. Thankfully, again, though, none of the main characters die here. It's just they all manage to escape. We are led to believe that Tara might turn from Dwight's arrow, but we all know she won't because Dwight didn't taint his arrows. So this whole scene's just kind of a joke. You can kind of say, oh, she thinks she's going to turn, but she's not. So it doesn't really have the same effect. Once again, everyone makes it, everyone that matters anyway. And so we get to see later on just how much Rick has become an uncontrolled monster as he and Morgan set off to look for the escaped prisoners at the hilltop. These prisoners escaped during the awakening of the zombies. Well, they didn't escape because of the zombies. They escaped because this little turd of a kid decided to open up the gate and demand to know who killed his brother, as if this little 8-year-old boy was going to be able to get the jump on, 15 grown men. It's like, kid, you're an idiot. And of course they all escape. Rick and Morgan end up, though, getting captured by these escaped prisoners. But only briefly, because a convenient herd of walkers find their way into the warehouse that they were being held up at. The Saviors release Rick and Morgan in good faith, and they all work together to clear the warehouse. In fact, one of the Saviors actually saves Rick's life. But when all that's said and done, suddenly Rick and Morgan end up shooting all of them in the back and kill them. The one long-haired prick guy, that everyone really hates and killed the kid's brother, ends up getting away, but Morgan cuts him off at the pass and traps him with some walkers, and we see him get ripped to pieces. It's probably the best way that guy could have died. He was kind of a scumbag anyway. This entire scene is kind of important because it shows that Rick isn't playing games anymore, but it also shows you just how much of he's just as bad as far as I can tell as Negan, as far as I'm concerned. Rick was always the moral one. You take the high road, and this was an easy road to take for the most part. These men wanted to help you and they wanted to work with you. You gave them your word, but and then you told them they could, and then you double crossed them. That's pretty damn dirty. There's nothing, I think, dirtier. You can say what you want about Negan. Negan was a man of his word. Yeah, he killed people and he was brutal and maybe he was a little bit unfair. Actually, I would make the argument that Negan was quite fair because Negan had no idea who Rick was. Rick shows up to one of his outposts, kills everybody in the dead of night in their sleep. Negan says, well, that's not going to work. Like any other normal human being would be like, you don't kill my people and get away with it. Ends up capturing Rick and his group and only kills one person. The only reason why Glenn dies is because Daryl decided to punch Negan in the face. Still doesn't matter. Technically speaking, Rick and his whole entire group should have been taken out for what they did. But he didn't do that. And Negan said, as long as you guys cooperate, only one of you is going to have to die. Well, guess what? Daryl didn't cooperate. And so he took Glenn out. So you can say what you want about Negan, but Negan is a man of his word. Rick goes against his word. Rick is actually probably the bigger monster at this point than Negan. So there has been a flip here in the entire ecosystem. It's all turned upside down. You know, you kind of hear Rick play over it a little bit with Morgan after it's all said and done, but not a whole lot. It's like almost like he has a little remorse, but he really doesn't. And Rick also gets on the radio after Carl's death and tells Negan that he's coming for him and there's no chance for peace. He knows Carl wanted peace for them, but Rick's like, nope, not going to happen. I'm coming for you. I'm going to kill you. So Rick has gone full send with this war. You know, he's in a very, very dark place, and Carl's death, you know, sends him in even more of a dark place. But then back at the sanctuary, meanwhile, things aren't all okay. Negan shows back up and surprises everyone, including Simon. He messes with Simon and Dwight a little bit, but he knows the truth about both of them. He knows that Dwight was the one giving up information. You know, Simon killed all those people at the garbage dump, and he also he tried to kill everybody at the hilltop. So Negan confronts Simon on that, and basically Negan being, again, a pretty highly moral character. Negan goes, you want my position? You can fight me for it. Let the best man win. And in many ways, like, Negan could have just hit him with the bat and been done with it. But Negan's like, no. If you want to be the leader of this group, you'll have to fight me for it. Okay. So he does. Negan fights Simon for the leadership position and ends up killing Simon. Negan also turns Dwight into a worker, much like what they did with Daryl in the previous seasons. And so all that goes on, and Michonne, she ventures out to the sanctuary, or at least nearby, close enough for radio range, to read the letter that Carl wrote to Negan. But at this point, Negan isn't having it anymore. Negan's kind of fed up. He's fed up with his people turning on him. He's fed up with Rick. And he basically smashes the radio and says, there's nothing you can do now. Rick and the group have done too much now to come back from that. And, you know, in many ways, rightfully so. It makes perfect sense. If I was Negan, I would want to put an end to it as well. Like, I wouldn't be putting up with it anymore. And Negan's very clear about that. He's like, I'm going to keep the hilltop. I'm going to keep the kingdom. But Rick and his people, they got to go, because ever since they've showed up, it's been nothing but problems, and it continues to be problems. And so I understand his reaction to this. There is no turning back now. So the season ends with everyone in a field. Rick thinks that he got the jump on Negan, but really Negan tricked him and now has them trapped and completely surrounded. I've skipped over quite a bit this season, and for good damn reason. Negan and his army open up fire on Rick and his group, but wouldn't you know it, the old traitor Eugene pulls through at the end and tampers with the ammo that he built. Yes, this is possible. It can happen. I verified it with someone who actually makes ammunition. It is very likely that this could happen if someone tampers with the ammo. So the guns all misfire, killing some of the saviors and wounding many more, including Negan. Negan's hand gets all messed up badly, and he tries to crawl away, but Rick catches up to him. They both fight it out, endlessly beating each other up, but eventually Rick gets the upper hand and slices Negan's throat with a broken piece of glass. Now, Negan should be dead here, but he isn't. In some weird twist of events, Rick calls his doctor to come and save him. Wait, what? After all of this, you decide to save Negan? That's right, fair listener, when we went through that entire season of shenanigans, only to end up here where Rick suddenly and out of nowhere has change of heart about Negan. Now, first of all, if you did have a change of heart about killing Negan, why would you slit his throat? It's hard enough to survive that in real life with modern medicine and doctors and everything we have today, let alone in an apocalypse with a guy who was barely a resident before the pandemic. But whatever. This isn't even my biggest beef. Sure, I get it. He reads Carl's letter again. But how do you go from being the ruthless man that shoots saviors in the back, the ones who helped you, saved your life? These guys actually saved your life. They proved to you that they were loyal to you, and you kill them anyway. And in the most diabolical way, you shoot them in the back like a coward. to now suddenly you're sparing the life of the man that killed your friends and terrorized your people, that drove you to this point of insanity. And you did all that in the span of one episode, maybe, at that. I could understand if Rick was having a change of heart when Carl died, which was several episodes behind this, but he went deeper into rage mode. And now out of nowhere, he just snaps to it and decides, oh, Negan should live. No. So, sadly, what happened is, one, Negan is such a well-loved character that the show couldn't kill him off. Just like they could not kill any of the other well-known characters off the season. Did you notice that we had a giant war and the only ones who died were basic C-list characters, undeveloped, people we didn't care about? That's why this entire season was so flat. There was no risk. There never felt there was a risk or really, for that matter, a payoff. Yeah, you lost Simon. Negan loses Simon, but that was the only meaningful loss the entire season, if that. It actually made the season interesting, really, to see Negan's guys start to turn on him because, as I've said before, the tyrant can only rule for so long before someone tries to overthrow him. Rick doesn't suffer from that problem, of course, and I mean this intentionally, he really doesn't. Even Maggie respects his decision enough not to go over and kill Negan herself when he decides to save him. And believe me, though, she wasn't happy about that decision for him to save him. But that's the kind of respect that Rick has as a leader. Negan doesn't have that because he rules like a tyrant. But maybe Negan is being kept alive because rumors are swirling around, and it's one of the rumors that swirled up during the end of this season, and that rumor was obviously Carl wouldn't be the only actor departing the show. Yep, that's right. Andrew Lincoln has decided to break away too. We find out at this point when this season aired, or the end of the season, it turns out his reasoning was he was missing his family back in London. Apparently, the shoots go on for so long throughout the year that he doesn't get to see his family. That's according to him. Or, in my opinion, it could be that Andrew saw the writing on the wall and how bad this show has gotten and wanted to break away while it still had a little shred of credit left. And that most of the people he started off with in season one anyway, the group that got along so well and made the show what it was, is mostly gone now. Daryl and Carol are the only two left from season one, besides Morgan. And I usually don't include Morgan because his appearance in season one was very short. So how will that work? I don't know. The Walking Dead is all about Rick Grimes. That's what it's always been about. He's the main character. The other characters orbit around him. It's his story. So it'll be interesting to see how season 9 goes and what happens next. How will the show progress without Rick's character? What will happen with Negan? Will he fill Rick's shoes? And if so, how? How do you take a character that was a psychotic maniac and place him in the role of a fearless, respectable leader? The answer is really you can't. But I assume, and I'm predicting that the show is going to try that. Negan cannot become the hero or anti-hero for that matter. There's really no way in any logical realm that he could appeal to Maggie. And that's exactly who he'll have to appeal to. Because she's going to be one of the leaders. According to how the season ends, Rick may have a hard time appealing to Maggie too, as she is obviously not at all happy that Negan is alive and seems to have a plan in place to get him and kill him, even if that means having to hurt Rick. And so that's how that season ends. And so with that said, what's going to happen? How are they going to make this work? What's going to happen with Negan? Seeing as the writers really couldn't handle this season and the whole plot of a war between these two communities, I'm in pretty big fear of what's to come. I think it kind of goes without saying I'm not a big fan of this season. There's a little bit to love and a lot to hate. The writing is bad. It's cheesy. It's not well played out. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It seems like it felt like the writers didn't want to lose any main characters, but yet they kept putting main characters into very dangerous situations. And sometimes in such dangerous situations that it felt like there's really no way for them to get out of it. And then they kind of write some ridiculous way for them to get out of it. It's all just very bad. I could think of a million different ways that this war would have gone on. It probably would have led to the loss of a lot of good characters. It would have led to the loss of several communities. It would have probably meant that many of the communities would have ended up joining together as one. Because the reality is I didn't write Negan to be so powerful. The writers of this show did that in the last season. They showed us just how powerful Negan has become. So this idea that Rick and his group and these other communities were going to just waltz right up to the sanctuary and start a war, that's absolutely ridiculous. I could have thought of about a million different ways where I would have made it much more interesting, much more dynamic, and more, I guess you could say, realistic. Because what we got here was just over the top craziness that didn't make any sense. Doesn't really go a whole lot. It's like food is scarce all the time. Maggie's trying to figure out how she's going to feed the hilltop. They don't have enough food. They meet they meet this random ass woman with some other chicks and driving around in a van. I don't know. Maybe who knows? And she ends up giving him a book for some records. So I'm like, what world are we living in? These three women just show up out of nowhere and just trade information for records. It's like, what is going on? I'm sure we'll find out more about who those people were. Also, Sheba dies. The tiger ends up dying in like the third episode. I guess they ran out of money to CGI a tiger in the show. I didn't care because the tiger was stupid. It should never have been there to begin with. Nobody would have a pet freaking tiger, especially in the apocalypse. It's just over the top nonsense in this show. They've completely ruined it. They've ruined a lot of these characters. You could tell they had no idea what they were doing this season. You've built up to this huge war. You have an excellent amount of material going forward here with this. You could do a lot of different things. You could go a million different routes, and this is the decision you made. And so even after watching it a second time, I'm as equally frustrated by watching as I was the first time. And I probably would have been I can understand why I was more frustrated when it first aired, because I had to wait each week to watch each one of these episodes and continue to be disappointed. Continue to roll my eyes and go, what am I watching? How did we get here? How did we get to this point? Dwight also gets let go. There's a lot of little things that happen. Daryl lets Dwight leave, which I think is fair. Like, I don't think, like, that seems very in line with Daryl. Daryl is a far more forgiving character than his brother was. Merle would not have let Dwight go. Merle would have killed Dwight. But that's always been the difference between, Daryl's always had a big heart. And so I think that him letting Dwight go, just be like, don't you ever come back here again. It's like, yeah, no, that's in line with his character. Overall, I can't stand it. Bad season. The war was silly. Didn't make a whole lot of sense. It could have been done a lot better. Maybe one day I'll kind of break it down on how I would have done it. It made it a little bit more interesting. I kind of did a little bit in terms of these battle scenes of how they should have been done. This idea that you just roll up to the sanctuary, that's the thing that bothers me the most. I've only watched one episode of season 9, so we're starting to get into the season 9. It's equally as strange, but not as bad. It does start to show. It's slightly interesting. It's a little more interesting than this. It's kind of like the post-war, what's going on with all the communities and the things they have to deal with. So it's not horrible. The first episode of season 9, like season 8 was. Yeah. On that note, folks, I would love to know what you think. Did you watch season 8 before you listened to this podcast? I'd love to know what you think about it all. Did you think it was good, bad, or ugly? Is there things that you liked or didn't like? I will say this. A lot to hate, very little to love. I certainly hope season 9 gets better, but if I remember correctly, that is exactly where I gave up on this show. So I imagine my feelings will be the same. And then I will just have to stomach through the last 3 seasons altogether. So I thank you for listening, guys. If you want to reach out to me and let me know what you think, you can always hit me up on Twitter. Hit me up at The Rant with David King on Facebook, Instagram. You can also email me at davidking.therant@gmail.com. Love to hear from you. If you love this show, if you're enjoying these little series, let me know. I will do more. We can pick a different show to do. Love to pick another show to watch, and we can do a little breakdown. If you enjoyed the last episode where I interviewed Laura Balance from the Hudgens, I'm planning on doing a lot more of interviews like that here in the future. I've got a few lined up, so look forward to that. And if you're enjoying the show all in all, guys, please go rate and review on Instagram, iTunes. Go rate on iTunes, podcasts, Spotify, Google, wherever you listen to your podcast. Give us a review. It doesn't cost you anything, but it helps out tremendously. And if you're not subscribed, go now and subscribe to the show so you can get up-to-date episodes once they post. I try to post 2 episodes a week. Doesn't always happen, but definitely one a week, generally on Tuesday. That's usually when I post. It's either a Tuesday or a Thursday. This time it had to be Tuesday and Friday. But I do my best. This is not my main job. But if you're enjoying it, folks, please subscribe. Tell a friend. It helps out tremendously, more than you could ever know. The algorithms are up and they're going much, much higher. And I'm just really, really excited about that, guys. So thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for following me along on this journey. You all have a great night, and I look forward to talking to you next week. Enjoy your weekend. Stay safe, and we'll catch you on part 9 later next week. Bye, guys.